Well, we have new details on the killing of a gorilla at the Cincinnati Zoo. Police are now investigating possible criminal charges after a 4-year-old boy fell into the animal's exhibit over the weekend.
Zookeepers stand by their decision to kill the animal instead of tranquilizing it. There's also more calls for the boy's parents to be held accountable. Jamie Yukis has the latest.
Cincinnati Zoo officials say Harambe was agitated and disoriented after he encountered a child in his enclosure Saturday.
We did not take the shooting of Harambe lightly, but that child's life was in danger.
On Monday, Zoo Director Thane Maynard doubled down on the decision to shoot the western lowland gorilla.
Oh my God!
After a 4-year-old boy climbed over a public barrier into the gorilla's habitat.
People who question that don't understand that you can't take a risk with a silverback gorilla. They're very big, 3 times bigger than a man, 6 times stronger than that.
The woman who took this video, Kim O'Connor, says she heard the boy and his mother arguing shortly before the incident.
I'm going to go in. No, you're not. I'm going to go in. No, you're not.
Harambe's death is under heavy scrutiny. More than 300,000 people have signed a petition calling for the boy's parents to be held accountable.
The zoo isn't a babysitter.
Wildlife biologist Jeff Corwin isn't placing blame, but says the public should be more attentive.
We have responsibilities when we take our families. A lot of times we get lost in our cell phone or this selfie picture or texting, and we're not keeping an eye on what's going on with our own children. Also, these are wild animals. This is not animatronics at Disney World.
The boy made his way past a 3-foot fence and through an additional 4 feet of plants and shrubs before dropping 15 feet into the moat below. And although the Cincinnati Zoo is standing by its decision, they too are mourning the gorilla, along with Jerry Stones, who took care of Harambe for the first 15 years of his life.
He was not mean. He was a gentle little guy, and an unforeseen circumstance was born, and he had to lose.
Criminal defense attorney Diana Aizman joins us now to talk about the legal ramifications of the incident. So Diana, obviously there's calls now for the family to take responsibility for the killing of Harambe. Legally speaking, though, who's at fault here?
So a larger scale investigation needs to take place. So we need to look into, first of all, whether or not the zoo's enclosure was secure enough for small children, because obviously it's a zoo and we're expecting small children to visit the zoo. So if that seems to check out, then we need to start looking into the family. So investigations need to be done into whether or not this was an isolated incident or whether or not these parents are consistently leaving their children unattended, where they have the opportunity to go through a fence to drop down into 15 feet down to a moat. I mean, that's a long period of time that this woman had to have lost track of her child.
Let's take a look at that. You see it's a 3-foot barrier there, then a 4-foot, then the kid drops 15 feet. I mean, clearly this was not something the zoo took lightly. They had precautions in place. This is a huge feat for a 4-year-old to have to scale.
Right. Yeah, it would take, presumably it would take some time where the child would have to figure out and maneuver how to get through the gate and then walk down towards where the ledge is there. So that period of time, how long the mother didn't have control over her child, that's really going to be the pinpoint of the investigation, together with the sort of totality of the circumstances, looking into the family dynamic, things that are going on at home. Those are the types of things that they're going to be investigating.
And the other question, I guess, is, and you hear that the mother is now receiving threats and it's gotten very, very ugly. Yeah. But, you know, clearly if the zoo had decided, for example, to tranquilize the animal and that it agitated Harambe and he had killed that child, God forbid, then we would have a whole new discussion here.
Absolutely.
I think it's tough. I mean, you know, we do a lot of politics here. Donald Trump, the presidential candidate, said that he was asked that question at a press conference, and he said it was a tough call. I mean, on one hand, you don't want to have to kill a magnificent animal like this, but on the other hand, just in a split second, a 450-pound gorilla that can crush coconuts with its bare hands could have easily kill that child.
Without a doubt. And that's really something that the special team that was brought in to assess the situation had to take into consideration. And they determined that this child was in grave danger and they needed to act immediately, or that could result in the loss of life to this child. And I think that with that understanding, depending on how they made that assessment, assuming that they made that assessment, knowing all of the facts behind it, you know, it seems like they were trying to do whatever they could to protect the human life here.
Diana, you're a mom, I'm a mom. Yeah. I know how easy it is. I have toddlers. Just you turn your head and they are gone, right? Half a second and they are gone. Do you think that the parents will be held accountable on this?
I think it's going to be tough. I think it's, you know, it's sort of an accidents happen situation. It's a horrible, horrific accident. But I think that if everything else looks fine in the home, if there are no other incidents, if there's no other complaints or concerns about this family, I really don't think that they're going to be seeing any kind of criminal charges brought.
Could the family turn around and sue the zoo and say, look, this isn't, but the zoo has said that they haven't had any incidences like this since the 70s.
Right.
But could they turn around and say, well, look, it doesn't look as safe as you maybe assume it is?
The zoo that
Absolutely.
saved their child's
Yes,
life.
the zoo that saved their child's life.
Right, by killing an endangered species. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to whether or not the safeguards that were in place are adequate for not just this family, but the general public at large. And it's a reasonableness standard. How reasonable is it that a mother would lose track of her child long enough for them to scale this enclosure and get into this dangerous place?
It certainly made me look at a trip to the zoo completely differently.
Yeah, for sure. Diana Aizman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And stay with us when later this hour we'll be joined by Jack Hanna to talk about whether the zoo made the right call.